Speaking of families, I read an article just the other day about citrus fruit and its effect on children's teeth.
Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about magazines. So, magazines, not as much in favour as they used to be. A lot of magazines have gone to online and not being printed, which is a shame. There's something very special about magazines, I think, but I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of magazines that I bought, show you some examples, and maybe some stuff that you've bought in the past as well. I don't know, it might be something that trigger some nostalgia maybe. But there's something very tactile and awesome about the amount of information in a magazine, the amount you can get every month, the excitement that it's going to come out at the beginning of next week or whatever, and you'd nip down to newsagent and you'd get the magazine, and you might find some other magazines that are related. There might be a special edition featuring someone that you really like in a big way. So I've got an example of that in a minute. Well, a few examples. But magazines had a real gateway into whatever industry it was. So if it was a film magazine, then into the film industry. If it was a music magazine, into the music industry. If it was a television magazine, into the TV industry. There were so many different things in the magazine that were unique to that magazine. So it could be interviews with celebrities that you wouldn't find interviews with otherwise, you know. So sometimes the science fiction ones used to have interviews with authors, and it was very rare to get interviews with authors. And obviously you've got the science fiction magazines themselves that had short stories and that, but they weren't as frequently found in newsagents, and they were a bit more expensive as well. But you sometimes got that, and you had like film reviews, book reviews, features on the making of the TV shows or films. You'd have TV guides, so episode guides. You'd have reviews of the previous season of something. You'd have all sorts of things in these magazines, but an absolute insight into whatever it was that you're into. And obviously with lots of glossy photos and photos from the set, and just really awesome stuff. So I thought it'd be nice to just talk about some magazines for a bit, and I've been prompted by the fact that because of the way the house has shifted recently, I now have access to two big collections that I was going to mention that might be interesting to some people that I haven't mentioned yet. So if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that the Twilight Zone is really important to me, and I've already done a video on my Twilight Zone magazines. I've got a big chest over there with two enormous piles of my Twilight Zone magazine collection. These three editions, for some reason, are not in that chest over there, although it is bursting. But the Twilight Zone magazine is an amazing thing, and I'll link down below to my video about these magazines, because it was a good long wade through all of them, and it talks about what's in the magazines. But there was like episode guides. There's about 8 short stories in each one, by up and coming authors, as well as people like Stephen King and Richard Matheson. And I think even one edition of it has got Robert Bloch in there. And there were some, so a lot of it's the stories. But you'd have, here, just opening up, there's an interview with David Cronenberg. I'm a big fan of David Cronenberg. This is just one random copy of... Oh, and then the teleplay of the episodes. So they did that a lot as well. And this is... one of the classics. And this one features an interview with Nicholas Meyer, who was obviously famous for putting a lot of the guts into The Wrath of Khan when he did that. but there's a thing here about him, an interview with him, and there's even like things like that, islands, ghostly mansions. So some real life stuff, as well as the more fantastical stuff. So Twilight Zone magazine was an amazing thing, and it's quite rare to find copies of it now, which is why my collection is so dear to me. But there's a few I haven't got, but I have got many copies. And yeah, this is just 3 of them that weren't in the chest. So the Twilight Zone magazine, clearly I need to start with that because it's such a huge, important part of my life. But yeah, magazines, you can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and I used to buy so many. So I'll just quickly go over the ones that I bought regularly in my late teens and early 20s before I thought, what am I doing? I'm buying too many magazines, and stopped it. So it was magazines like Starburst, Starlog. I think Starlog was before Starburst, but Starburst ended up, I think, being more popular. Certainly it was on more shelves than Starlog. Cult TV, so it's kind of one that's copying the format of Starburst and Starlog. SF Magazine, so SF Magazine was probably my favourite of all of these kind of science fiction magazines. And Dream Watch, that was another TV based one, but it had some really good Babylon 5 stuff in it and Doctor Who stuff and things like that. Some music related ones, so I used to get Mojo every month. Sometimes I'd get Uncut magazine. Before I was getting Mojo, I used to get Q magazine a lot, and I ended up, there was a bit of a period where I got both, and then I ended up just getting Mojo. But Q magazine was hugely popular in this country. Sound and Vision. So Sound and Vision, no, Sound on Sound. Sound on Sound as well, a film magazine. That was really good, and much more academic, and definitely for proper film buffs. But that was a really good magazine. And Folk Roots magazine. So because I had an interest in folk music, the Folk Roots magazine was fantastic. It's the only way you could hear about those kind of artists, and a lot of the people it talked about weren't even played on the radio, let alone put on TV. So the Folk Roots magazine was really good. So there's a few other things I bought. So now and again I treat myself to Cine Fantastique magazine. So the great thing about Cine Fantastique was that each issue they make a big deal about one particular thing, and most of the magazine was about that one film, usually film. And this one, for example, is Little Shop of Horrors, and there's just tons of stuff about the making of Little Shop of Horrors. And this is a look at this. This is this central image is they filmed and couldn't keep because the test audience didn't like the ending, but Audrey 2 wins at the end in the original version. so yeah, that's a lovely image, isn't it? So it's funny when you look back on these things. There's a thing about the Lost Boys there. The thing about Demons 2, which clearly went straight to video, and on The Running Man, there's a feature on The Running Man there. But anyway, most of that issue is about Little Shop of Horrors. I don't know if you are a particular fan of Little Shop of Horrors. I am. And I've got the Dark Crystal one. I've got a few that I've kept. But Cine Fantastique was great because it delved so deeply into a particular film. Another kind of unique thing. So this is the days before the internet. So now you can find interviews with these kind of people now because of YouTube. But before YouTube, before the internet, it was very hard. And I remember finding out about this and I couldn't believe it. And I ordered it. Pretty sure this is an American magazine. Not sure. Is it an American magazine? Yeah, it's $2.95. So I ordered this, even though, you know, it's a bit more removed. But I had to, because it's Film School Monthly, and it's got an interview with Danny Elfman, and I'm pretty sure it's got music by him as well. Let's have a look. Is it music by him? No, it's just an interview. It might be the other one I've got that's got the... but yeah, this has got reviews of different soundtracks that come out as well. It's clearly less glossy, bit more of a smaller organisation making it, but a great magazine. And my first chance, if you like, not my only chance, because obviously the internet happened, but my first chance to really get to know what Danny Elfman was like as a person. So that was amazing. So Film School Monthly. Got another one there. And these things here, Cult Times. I've still got these because these are. So I used to buy Cult Times. These was like sci-fi and fantasy TV magazine, but these had specials on Babylon 5. So I've kept those. I've kind of kept them with my magazines over there that I'm going to mention in a minute. But yeah, Babylon 5 specials there, which is quite cool. The best guide to cult TV. See, sci-fi and fantasy isn't that cult anymore, is it? It's quite mainstream. TV Zone, that's another one I got. Again, I've kept that one. It's got the bit on Babylon 5 and the fact that it's quite a lot about the end of Babylon 5 and talking about Crusade that followed it. Such a shame about Crusade, because I think J.M. Straczynski, who wrote both things, he had some really interesting things planned for the final bits of Crusade, and then they pulled it, so it couldn't happen. So, and then again, just because it's here, Starburst I've already mentioned, but Starburst, again, they did a really cool Babylon 5 special. It's massive as well. So that was like interviews with the cast and episode guides and all that sort of stuff. So that's really cool. And this is an example of Mojo. I've still got this one. I did get rid of a lot of these magazines because that's the trouble, you see. I think the idea of a magazine is it's a bit disposable, but it ends up being collectible and people collect them. And you end up with piles and piles and piles of magazines, and then you realise at one point, I'm going to have to get rid of this. So, yeah, you ditch a lot of the magazines you had. And I've got a few versions of Mojo still. Usually, if they're Kate Bush related, I've kept the Mojos, and I think I might even have a couple of Q magazines if there was a feature on Kate Bush. And this is one by Uncut, but this is a special Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young one. And this is really good. It's got a proper kind of biographical stuff about the whole career, and stuff about some of their projects they did together. It covers each album. It covers some of the ups and downs of the group, because there was quite a few of them. But it's a really good issue, and it was, these sort of specials I think are really cool, and there's a lot more of them now. I think because magazines aren't bought as much and they've got to pull you in a little bit more, they're not quite relying on just standard little articles, and they're doing big deep dives into things, I think, more often now. But anyway, this was an example that Uncut made. I think Uncut were made by the same people that made Mojo, to be fair. So there's some music magazines there, and those film and TV ones. So I was going to tell you what prompted this. So as I said, I've got this massive collection of Twilight Zone magazines, which I love very dearly, very, very important to me. I mean, part of that is because it was when I started reading properly, and a lot of my favourite writers end up being put in there, doing different things in the magazine, because like Robert Sheckley, for example, did a regular feature of film reviews and things like that. So I love the Twilight Zone magazine for all sorts of reasons. But there are two shows. I've already done videos on these two shows, and if you know my channel, you know that these are two of my favourite shows. But they both had magazines come out based on the show. And basically, this is every edition of the Farscape magazine. So there was a lot of them. It didn't run forever, but this is every copy. There is one, it was kept in my shed, and when I got them out, I was gutted that some of them weren't in great condition. It was like water had got in there, and there was one that, that one, the cover was ripped a little bit, so that was really, really frustrating. But there we go. Giant 100-page issue. So this is information on season 4. So this is like the last season of the show, and a villain special. So Scorpius is the greatest villain of all time, of anything. What are you talking about? No, it's true. He is the greatest villain of all time. Interviews with Skozu, Grazer, and the old woman, their auntie. It's just called the old woman there, but such a great character. If you haven't seen Farscape, you need to see it. So just quickly, just do this for a bit so you can see it. So that's the one that's ruined. Meet Mum and Dad Crichton. The interview with those guys. Stuff about Rigel. Meet Shana. I'd love to meet Shana. Erin in action. So interviews with her, and I think there's something about Crace there as well. There's Scorpius. An interview with Claudia Black, Erin. Interview with Rodney S. O'Bannon, who helped to create it with Brian Henson. It was his kind of initial idea. And Lily Taylor's written a new story for that issue, which is quite cool. So a separate story. So you can see where we're coming from here. Like so there's some insider stuff, lots of interviews with people, and new fiction, which is cool. And here we are. So I haven't looked at these for years, but I don't know. There's a lot of sentimental value with these because I just remember the excitement when I knew that there was a new one coming out, and you know, you get a little preview in the previous issue about what's going to be in it. But you know, there's something really cool about going into the news agent collecting these magazines. So that was the Farscape magazines. And a magazine run that went for longer, and the pile is huge. So these are Babylon 5 magazines. So I think throughout the whole 5-year run, Babylon 5 had a magazine out every month. And again, similar sort of thing, probably from the same publishers, to be fair. I think it's the same publisher as the Star Trek magazine. So I did buy a few Star Trek magazines, but I did feel like I was buying so many magazines. It was a bit of a can of worms, and you can't buy everything. So I only bought a few, but it was the same publisher, I think. So it's the same similar format, but you've got these interviews with the cast and episode guides. You've got special gifts, which I didn't really take up, but you know, you could have done. You might have done. Customizable game card. I didn't really get into the game, but you might have been excited about that. Talk from the top. Some inside information from the producers. This looks like, yeah, an interview with Walter Koenig. So he did a fantastic second career as Alfred Bester, who was named after the author, obviously. He had a fantastic second career as Bester, the leader of the Psi Corps. Fantastic acting that he did in that role. And there's Walter Koenig being interviewed here in that issue. I mean, it's a big pile. So the stuff there with Londo. So Peter Jurassic being interviewed there. Claudia Christian. And the hugely underrated Andreas Casillas playing the unbelievable character of Jakar. The stuff that he says in that show, his speeches, the best writing James Straczynski ever wrote was Jakar's speeches. Unbelievable. Absolutely fantastic writing. Behind the scenes stuff of making of season 5. You get the point. So there's tons of them. So without looking at them in too much detail, because it won't be a very good video, you can see what may have attracted me to this, being a big fan of the show. Special feature, how Babylon 5 began. So you get loads of different insight into the show from these things. Conceptual artists stuff. I think that sort of thing is priceless, really. There's a thing about the visual effects here. So I've just picked up one of the issues by random, just having a look. Ron Thornton, visual effects guy, talking about how they create the effects. Because they had quite a low budget for a TV show. Oh, that was spoilers. Look at that. An advert from Forbidden Planet. Forbidden Planet is such a fantastic shop. Anyway. Special feature on Sleeping in Light, which was the last episode, which they had to film a year earlier because they thought it was going to be finished, and it came back. So they did do some stuff. So it did survive through Crusade a little bit, but I think it didn't last a lot longer than that. You get the point. More on Londo there. So I'm trying to not make this boring, but also give you a chance to see this if you are interested. Interview with the Doctor of Crusade. He was quite an interesting character. Galen, I think his name was, and he was Edward Woodward's son, Peter Woodward. Edward Woodward, great name. And obviously Gary Cole was a big name before he was the front man of Crusade. And I think he fit the show really well. I think it was really cool, but there we go. What can you do? They pulled it. I've got a couple of duplicates. I don't know why I've got duplicates, but there we go. Science in science fiction. Does Crusade make the grade? Or you can tie yourself in knots on that one. The Centauri, heroes or villains? Clearly villains, but yeah, they are. The good thing about Babylon 5, the great thing about Babylon 5 is the way there's all those grey areas. Long before grey areas was a common thing, the characters are not fully good or fully bad. Most of the good characters are fully good, to be fair, but the bad characters have redeeming features, or they change the plot in a very positive way during the course of the show. So it's quite cool that they're a bit more nuanced. Stuff on Jakar. Fate of Bester. Exclusive novel extract. So obviously they were using it to advertise the novelization kind of spin-off stuff as well. End of an era. So yeah, there's loads of them, and I've still kept them in good condition, which is good. But this goes right back to the 90s, early 90s. Well, probably the mid 90s, because I have a very distinct memory of sitting in front of the TV, watching Babylon 5 with my newborn daughter on my lap, quietly asleep while I watched Babylon 5. So it must have been the mid 90s. So anyway, magazines, aren't they brilliant? I don't know whether I should keep all of these magazines, to be fair, but I just end up dumping all this sentimental value on this stuff. So if you think I should get rid of these magazines, write in the comments, say, sort your life out, mate. Do that if you want. Or if you think, no, it's fine, keep them, and it'll make you smile when you see them, then that's fine as well. But don't worry, you don't have to make any judgment at all. You may have enjoyed this, you may have thought, yeah, that's fine, but where are the Star Trek magazines? And I apologise if you were looking for Star Trek magazines. But yeah, I just think magazines are really cool, and it's not the same looking on a website than it is finding this little thin, little tiny, thin, but strangely large book. It's just awesome. So, yeah, you didn't really get a lot of the interviews and inside information like that, visual effects stuff, in books, really. Or if you did, you'd have to be a special book on it. and you didn't get that from a lot of shows. So yeah, these magazines were quite cool for sort of having these little nuggets. So anyway, there's my little thing on magazines. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.
Paint me a picture of what it's like to be